Evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 5:30. We just heard the chime of the 5:30 bell, and I'd like to call to order this February 21st, 2023 meeting of the Monroe County Plan Commission to order. Ms. Nestor Jelen, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Margaret Clemens.
Here.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Here.
Bernie Garitas. Here. Jeffrey Morris.
Here.
Cheryl Munson.
Here.
Edward Oldman.
Here.
Dee Owens.
Here.
Jerry Pittsford.
Here.
Julie Thomas.
She may be joining late. and
Okay.
there's-
She is an attendee right now. I think she's getting promoted shortly.
Okay. So let the record reflect that Julie Thomas is online and she is being promoted to a panelist at Technicality on Zoom, and she will be attending virtually. Okay. Is there a motion to introduce the evidence?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded to introduce the following items into the evidence. The Monroe County zoning ordinance is adopted and amended. The Monroe County Comprehensive Plan is adopted and amended. The Monroe County Subdivision Control Ordinance as adopted and amended. The Monroe County Plan Commission Rules of Procedure as adopted and amended. And the cases that were legally advertised and scheduled for a hearing on tonight's agenda.
Is there a motion to, do you need to call the roll on that?
Yes.
Yes.
We'll go ahead and call the roll if there's a motion to approve and second. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Bernie Garitas.
Yes.
Jeffrey Morris.
Yes.
Cheryl Munson.
Yes.
Edward Oldman.
Yes.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford.
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as published. A motion in favor is a motion to approve. Bernie Garitas. Bernie Garitas. Yes. Okay. Jeffrey Morris.
Yes.
Cheryl Munson.
Yes.
Edward Ullman.
Yes.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford.
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
And we do have one set of minutes from our December 13th, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, motion to approve the December 13th, 2022 meeting minutes. A vote in favor is a motion to approve. Jeffrey Morris.
Yes.
Cheryl Munson. Edward Ullman.
Yes.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford.
Yes, and somebody might want to advise Edward that he wasn't here, so he doesn't need to vote on those.
Okay, Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Bernie Garitas.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0.
Okay, and there's no administrative business tonight, so the first item on the agenda is REZ-22-12, and I'd just like to tell the public exactly how this format will proceed. First of all, the staff will introduce kind of the petition, and then the petitioner or the petitioner's representative will have 15 minutes to make their case. Then the members of the public in favor of the petition will have 3 minutes to speak, and then the members of the public who are opposed to the petition each will have 3 minutes to speak, and then the petitioner will have a 5-minute opportunity to rebut, and then we discuss and vote on it. So just so everybody's clear on the format, I just wanted to let you know so that you just feel a little bit more comfortable. And so with that being said, Mr. Myers, would you please introduce the case for the Rolfson rezone from RE1 to Ag RR? This is the final hearing for the Plan Commission concerning 19.34 plus or minus acre parcel in Bloomington Township, Section 8 at 4851 North Kinzer Pike. And so, Mr. Myers, if you would go ahead.
And Margaret, I'm going to make a quick announcement that
Yes.
should have been under administrative business, so I
Yes.
apologize. But I just wanted to let people know that we had a discussion at the administrative meeting
Yes,
about hosting a CDO, County Development Ordinance Focus Group.
yes,
So we've picked a date of March 23rd for
okay.
those meetings to be held. It will be 5:30 to 6:45. And we're going to be hosting the 3 focus groups concurrently. So we've chosen the names for those as environmental protections, construction review, and economic development.
Okay,
And so we will be coordinating with the Plan Commission members about which groups that you've signed up for and that we're going to have you be put in. And I've got the next slide that will also show it, but we'll be posting more information on our monroecdo.com website with the information about each group so that people can sign up and attend the focus groups. So for anyone online that wants to get more information about the focus groups, we'll be posting that on the monroecdo.com website.
okay. Thank you for organizing all that. That will be important. And so members of the public, if you are interested to have some input in the new county development ordinance, I encourage you to attend on March 23rd from 5:30 to 6:45 to learn what's happening and how it may affect your property. So put that on your calendars, and if you can, please show up. We'd like to hear your feedback. With that being said, Mr. Myers, would you please begin?
Thank you. This is REZ-22-12, the Rolfson rezone from RE1 to Ag RR. This is the final hearing. We heard this during the last last Plan Commission meeting, which was on January 17th. And in the staff report that is included in the packet that was published, I did include some red text and red highlights for changes that had been made to that petition. So for example, a brief synopsis of what happened at the last meeting. There was some questions regarding the Highway Department's final recommendation regarding proposed access for the property and the overall thoroughfare plan of the area. We'll talk about a bit about that tonight. Also, the Plan Commission asked the petitioner what steps he had to screen the proposed winery use from the neighboring properties. There was several members of the public that came to speak in opposition to the proposal, and staff had requested those individuals submit letters to the planning staff. Those letters have been included in the packet, and they will also be presented here this evening. We do have one letter that missed the publication of the packet, so it's only in the presentation this evening. So I will pause for a little bit while longer when we get to that letter specifically, so you have an opportunity to read it. Additionally, let's see here, other top things. I think that pretty much covers it, other than the petitioner, it was requested that they provide more information about business activities, delivery truck occurrences, plans to mitigate the impacts of the winery, etc. So with that, I'll get to a bit of a summary, since it's been a little while since we've heard this. The petition site is one parcel totaling 19.34 acres located in Bloomington Township at 4851 North Kinzer Pike. The petitioner is proposing to amend the zoning map from Estate Residential 1 to Agricultural Rural Reserve with the intention to establish the land use of a winery on the property. A winery is not permitted in the RE1 zoning district, but it is permitted in the Ag RR district. If the rezoning request is approved by the county commissioners, the petitioner intends to complete the planning process for the establishment of a winery and follow a site plan review process. This site plan review is typically completed at a staff level, reviewed administratively by planning staff. If the rezone is denied, the petitioner may continue to operate the property as a single-family residence, which was the previous use of the property, or may pursue any of the available uses as outlined in Chapter 833 of the Monroe County Zoning Ordinance for the RE1 zone, subject to any special conditions for each of those specific uses. Okay, so I do have the definition for winery as identified in Chapter 802 listed here. I also have the definition of event center. So there are two kinds of event centers in the zoning ordinance. There's the event center that you see on screen defined in Chapter 801. This event center is permitted only in the GB zoning district or general business, and you can see the definition there. It's essentially, a more urban use event center, if you will. There's also agricultural event center, although it doesn't have a unique definition within the zoning ordinance. It does appear in chapter 813 as a conditional use for the Ag RR zone. And these are, the next few slides are the standards that are required for a conditional use of this event center in the Ag RR district. So there's lots of guidance here for establishing a event center. It would be an accessory use to a primary agricultural use in this zone. And in order to establish this type of use, a petitioner would have to go through the conditional use variance process, which goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals. These are the types of standards that would be evaluated in a situation that would have gone to the Board of Zoning Appeals for an event center in the Ag RR zone. We included this information because in the past, the petitioner did state that they had some plans to engage in some event planning on the property. However, through initial conversations with planning staff and seeing what the petitioner had in mind for the property, it was conveyed to them that their mixed use idea for the property would fit better as a planned unit development. And that type of process was communicated to the petitioner, and the petitioner came back to planning staff and stated that if they wanted to do that, they would follow the appropriate process. However, they wanted to pursue simply the winery use as defined in Chapter 802 for this rezone request. I included the definition of agricultural rural reserve district as well here. We can come back to this if we have any questions about the character of this district. And next I have some exhibits. So here's the current zoning map. You'll note that the petition site is highlighted in light blue here where my cursor is on the screen. West Bell Road to the south and North Kinzer Pike along the east of the property, and then I-69 as well to the east. This large parcel here that I'm highlighting with my cursor that is just west of the petition site, this is actually zoned agricultural rural reserve. It does not show up on the county zoning map yet. It is a recent rezone that came through that was granted for the purposes of a sliding scale subdivision, which created 2 lots. Over here on the right side of the screen, I have the comprehensive plan, which has the property designated as farm and forest. Here we have the location map as well as the site conditions map on the right. You'll note that there's very little slope over 15% on the property and no known karst features or FEMA floodplain or any other hydraulic features. Okay, so here we have some comments from the Highway Department. During the department coordination meeting, planning staff was able to get some more information from the highway engineer regarding the recommendations for this petition. So I know this is a lot of text on the screen, but essentially Paul Satterley, the highway engineer, who is on, I believe is on the call tonight, stated that the highway department would be in support of the petition's access point off of North Kinzer Pike rather than West Bell Road. Ben Ayers, project manager at the highway department, stated that he will review the specifics of the driveway's proposed location and make recommendations based thereon after a right-of-way activity permit is submitted. To date, has been no right-of-way activity permit submitted, but that is something that we can condition on the rezone request and also have the petitioner submit that. Other things to note from my discussion with the highway engineer is that North Kinzer Pike was recently reconstructed as part of an I-69 project. Portions of North Kinzer Pike do begin to narrow as it continues into the city of Bloomington's jurisdiction. And the highway engineer stated that once you get that far into the city's jurisdiction, that it's more of a city question. I will note that the petitioner shared an email conversation with Andrew Sibor. I hope I pronounced that right. That was dated Thursday, February 2nd, and there was some initial extra conversation afterward. Basically, Mr. Sibor said that he was unaware of any forthcoming city capital projects in the area to improve North Kinzer Pike or widen it. But he knew that it was recently worked on as part of the NDOT project for I-69. There was some discussion in the past, during the past meeting at the Plan Commission level, regarding the safety of certain trees along North Kinzer Pike and West Bales Road. And Mr. Sibber conveyed an interest in receiving more information about those trees that may be in City of Bloomington's jurisdiction, and that he would gladly look at pictures or other pieces of information to look into the safety of those trees along the roadway. Here is also a email that was sent, email conversation between the petitioner and the representative from the City of Bloomington, and copied is the highway engineer as well. So this is an email conversation that kind of touches on some of the things I just spoke about, and the city's jurisdiction and recommendations based thereon for portions that they are in charge of along the roadways in the area. Okay, so here is a aerial pictometry of the property. The farmhouse here has since been removed, so the property is vacant. Here are some pictures on the ground. This is West Bell Road here, and then North Kinzer Pike extends in the foreground there, going north to south. And then here's a picture of the property itself, fairly flat land. Petitioner's statement, this was the statement that was shared last time. We do have a few other new exhibits I'm going to click to. This was the petitioner's initial response to the Plan Review Committee, which was the first committee that heard this petition. So there's some good information in here about that initial discussion regarding noise and nuisance and Indiana winemaking and other aspects of the project itself or for the petitioner. So here is the proposed site plan. This is not a final draft or anything. This is just more conceptual. Again, the site plan review process is an administrative process that would happen if this rezone is approved. And then I have some more details here that are just the same as the last time that we saw them. Some draft building plans and construction plans for structures on the property. Here we have the use table for the Ag RR district as well as the State Residential 1 district. You'll note that the Ag RR district does have a lot more available uses compared to the RE1 district. I know that there was some conversation in the past about restricting the number of uses or restricting to a specific use for this particular rezone. That is something that could come in the form of a condition. And we can always come back to these tables for more discussion. Okay, so here are a few newer exhibits. These were included in the staff packet. This is the petitioner's Kinzer Pike road width and traffic study narrative. So information that the petitioner provided. Again, it's in the packet. And this is just kind of highlighting alternative routes to the petition site, the Kinzer Pike road width, as well as other aspects that were mentioned in the previous meeting regarding specifics to the proposed business as well as traffic in relation to the winery. And here are some exhibits that followed that narrative from the petitioner. We can come back to any of these if we want. Okay, so this is a new exhibit that was submitted this afternoon. So this is the petitioner's final thoughts regarding the rezone. So I won't read this word for word, and I'm sure that the petitioner has a prepared statement this evening that he will share. So we can come back to this during that time if we'd like. And I'll pause for a moment for people to read a little bit. Okay. All right, and we did receive some letters of opposition. This one was included in the staff packet. So we did have a few members of the public that attended the meeting last time. They did submit letters to planning staff that were then published in the packet. I will click through a few of these that I hopefully you have read that were included until I get to the one that was not included. This one on the left side of the screen from Ms. Hasty, that one was not included in the packet because it just missed the publishing deadline for the packet. So I will take a pause here for you to read that as well. Okay. And we can come back to these if we so wish as well. Okay, so that brings us to the staff recommendation, and one more note to make that was included in your packet. This property, specifically in the initial conversations with the petitioner, with the new consolidated development ordinance coming in and the draft zoning map, this property initially was slated to transition from the RE1 zone to the Ag 2.5 zone. The petitioner stated that this proposed zoning transition was one of the initial reasons he felt comfortable with pursuing a rezone to the Ag RR district, being that the Ag 2.5 will be similar to the Ag RR district. Planning staff communicated to the petitioner in these early conversations that the CDO zoning map is indeed a draft and that it is subject to change and does not infer what the final zoning of a property will be when the CDO is adopted. However, the petitioner felt that that information was still enough to go for a rezone to the Ag RR district at this time instead of wait out the CDO process to see what the property would indeed transition to. Okay, so overall, planning staff recommends forwarding a positive recommendation to the Monroe County Board of Commissioners based on the petition's compatibility with the Monroe County Comprehensive Plan and subject to highway engineer and MS4 coordinator reports and subject to the following condition. 1, the petitioner submit a right-of-way activity permit application. I will now take any questions.
Do members of the Plan Commission have questions for Mr. Myers? I don't see any. With that being said, Mr. Rolfson, welcome back. If you would please come to the podium, sign in, state your name and the county where you live, and then you'll have 15 minutes to give us your petition and your
Pardon me,
rationale.
Ms. Clemens. Commissioner Thomas did raise her virtual
Oh, I didn't
hand.
see it. I can't see it here. Oh, Commissioner,
Yeah.
go ahead and sign in.
Sorry, if I might, one of the emails we got in late mentioned something about sinkholes. Did anybody on staff see anything related to sinkholes? It's the Hasty, Jane Hasty, you were on it just a second ago. I know you mentioned that there weren't any, but her email specifically mentions that there are some. Do we know anything about that?
Looking at the contour data you can see on the screen, staff doesn't recognize any sinkhole locations, but a more thorough survey could provide more information regarding that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Rolfson, if you would kindly state your name and the county where you live?
And I'm sorry, the what?
Your name and the county where you live?
Yeah, sure. I'm Tim Rolfson, and I live in Marion County.
And you have 15 minutes now to make your petition to the Plan Commission.
Okay. Drew, do you have that PowerPoint?
Yes, I do. One second
Please.
while I
Sure.
try and locate that on here.
By the way, there are sinkholes on the property. There was one pretty much dead center, and there are a few other karsts, and we will be working around those for when we plant vines. I had a surveyor and geologist come out and look at the property, so very aware of them being out there. Hopefully that's not too big to load. Okay. So I put this together just so we could get some high-level information, and then I've got final thoughts that I'd like to share with you on, my take on this. But the name of the winery is proposed to be Lime Rock Ridge. We had Tanglewood. We couldn't do that because it had a national trademark on it. So we're clear on Lime Rock Ridge, and we're pursuing that. But as a working farm growing high-value grapes, Lime Rock Ridge, and by the way, grapes are very high value, and they're very long in duration. The typical vineyard is going to last about 30 years, so this is, build it and run away and do something fly-by-night business. And it's designed to retain the character and the feel of the surrounding agricultural properties. The tasting room and production facility will look and feel comfortable in this rural setting. It will blend seamlessly with its environment while increasing land values and revenue for tourism, employment, and taxes. Some of the things we talked about at the last meeting, we want to be on 3 right now. There we go. Some of the topics we have would be the impact on the homeowners, and I presume by that we mean by default impact on home values. Real estate studies show that, in fact, a pattern of increased property values of homes that are located near wineries and vineyards. Noise, tasting room hours, and occasional coffee shop type of entertainment. You go into a coffee shop, someone's playing guitar, that's basically what we're gonna have. We're not gonna have the Who replica band come out there and, blast their speakers. It's not what we're about. And the other thing is we'll be closing the tasting room between 6 and 6:30. So everything's gonna be buttoned up, everybody's gonna go home for dinner, and the neighbors, if they could hear it in the first place, they'll be able to rest peacefully and enjoy their dinner on their patio. So that will limit the noise and the intensity. As far as traffic patterns are concerned, I talked to Andrew Seabor, and he emailed me back and said they're currently dealing with about 600 plus cars a day on Kinser Pike. We're expected to increase that maybe when things really get rolling by about 8%. That'll be through our area. I think this is an important point, but alcohol consumption, Lime Rock is not intended to be a bar or an event center. We talked about it early on, having an event center there. We've dialed that back, but it's not going to be a bar or an event center. Tastings amount to sampling, for example, 5 different wines, an ounce or less of each, which is equivalent of 1 glass or less of wine. So it's not going to be like a bar where people come in and hang out for a couple of hours and watch a basketball game. A typical tasting lasts for 1 hour or less. As far as economic impact is concerned, our impact will include an increase in tourism, which is a stated goal of the county and the state. And with that, we'll also collect additional tax dollars, have an impact on surrounding land values, and create jobs as our business grows. As far as offerings, tastings, again, consist of 5 wines, 1 ounce or less. Industry average show tastings last about an hour. They could last a little bit longer if people sign up to take a tour of the facility. It's not an uncommon thing. My nephew just recently had his pictures taken at Oliver Winery back in the tank room, and that seems to be a highlight for some people. But that can extend it, but there's no drinking involved other than maybe a small sample of a barrel-aged wine. Again, occasional entertainment featuring mostly local and regional artists. In keeping with the relaxed nature of our facility, the music will be low-key, and it will end at 6:30 or sooner. As far as food is concerned, we will not have a restaurant or a commercial kitchen. Rather, we would work with local vendors to have food trucks on site with permission with the health department and other requirements for that. And again, if allowed, we would have a prep area where we could receive delivered snacks that can be refrigerated and served without further preparation. Meetings and events. Yes, sure, I did a lot of business with Cook when I owned my other business, and I would love to have the folks from Cook come down and, have one of their executive meetings in our facility. We'd love to host them. We would do that, small, intimate events, and perhaps local art fairs. But given the small size of the facility, crowd size will also be limited. Okay, so this is a view of one of the renditions, what we're pursuing. It's designed to replicate a farmhouse barn-style concept. It will utilize limestone and earth tones to blend in with the landscape. The setback from the road, if my memory serves me, we've got about 200 feet setback from the center line of Kinzer Pike. It'll allow us to use landscaping to continue to soften the appearance. And going north from Bell Road, there's approximately 300 feet, so about a football field of buffer space between where the winery is going to be located and the road, and filling in that space, we'll have landscaping, grapevines, and other things that will grow to approximately 5 feet tall. So really the winery is, I wouldn't think is going to be offending anybody with that kind of buffer area. Okay, this is a rear view, a back view of the winery, and this is facing west. The outdoor area has a large patio space and panoramic views, so customers can come out and just relax while they're enjoying their wine. Driveways to the north, which is on this side of the building, we'll have our commercial people are asking about deliveries of grapes or things like that. It will be on the north side, far away from where the neighbors are on Bell Road. And I don't have this in here, but to answer the question about when and how much, I can't say precisely, but our business is all about making wine in the fall. Typically, harvests occur starting in September, they end in October. That's when you're making wine, and if you're going to be making wine from juice or fruit from another grower, which everybody does, then that's the same time frame that we'll be receiving the fruit and the juice. So it's not a year-long venture. And this is the floor plan. It kind of, as you can see, we've got, this area here is ultimately going to be the receiving area, and then customers can either move to the left to go into the tasting room, or they can move to the right to see a tour of the facility, or if we've got business partners coming in, that's how they'll enter as well. But again, it's not a sprawling space where we're going to be able to host inside hundreds of people. So it's really meant to be intimate. So some of the findings based on the last meeting that we had, you can go to the next one, Drew. Thank you. So I came down here a few weeks back, bought a tape measure at Lowe's, and kind of got in the way of a few cars because I wanted to measure, what was going on. And what I found out was that there's a segment of Kinzer Pike that's in question, and I first determined this via Google Maps. And so the segment of road in question runs from Bales Road to the driveway at 4755 North Kinzer Pike. And in that section, yes, there are indeed some shoulders that are kind of worn out. It's a 17-foot wide stretch from white line to white line. And there's one stretch in front of 4600, which is right here, that goes down to 16 feet. North of the 4755 Kinzer Pike address, the road is what NDOT just worked on, and that goes up to, I've got 21 to 22. When I went back and measured another time, it seemed like it was closer to 24 to 26. But we can measure that if need be. And then south of Bales Road, it's a more comfortable 18 to 18 and a half feet. And there's a lot less wear in that area too, so I think, you're probably dealing with a little bit of elevation change out there. And again, when I spoke to Andrew Cybor, that's something that they want to take into consideration, but I'll cover that in a minute. This is just another shot of the area that's in question leading up to the property we'd like to build a winery at. So again, the area in question that is really causing heartburn for some people is about 3/10 of a mile in length. That next slide, this slide is actually showing the length of Kinzer Pike, which is at the roughly 24 feet in width area, and it is that way throughout all of the elevation changes and all of the curves, and then it ends up on Bottom Road where things go flat, things are a little less treacherous, and you probably just don't have to worry about it. I don't know what drove the decision to end it there. I don't know what drove the decision to build it out like that in the first place or to build out Simpson Chapel Road, but it seems to me as part of a larger plan, but I don't have information on that. Okay, so alternate routes, and I did this one a couple of times. Sample Road is completely rebuilt, Simpson Chapel Road is completely rebuilt, and this route eventually becomes Bottom Road. So you come to the bottom of Simpson Chapel, bear to the left, and you're on Bottom Road. And while it adds about 2 minutes, a substantial portion of the route along Bottom Road, or a substantial portion is new and it's wide. Bottom Road is not new, visibility is very good, and it's flat. It's got a couple of 90-degree turns. What I would propose is, I'm happy to work with the highway, foot the bill. You know, you go down Bottom Road and all of a sudden you've got a hard right-hand turn. I'll pay for a reflective sign there, but during our busiest period, people are not going to be doing that at nighttime, so it's probably not as relevant. But I will pay for that signage if so requested. To encourage visitors to use this route, we propose placing signage near the Sample Road exit, and there's already signage for Butler Winery and Oliver Winery there. We'll get our sign up there, and we'll also put samples, downloadable, directions on our website to encourage people coming from the Indianapolis area or other areas coming south to use those directions. Another way I've been to the property is the Kinzer Bike from the bypass. It's used daily by cars without issue. I go down to the subway, at least when it was open, and got my sandwich at lunchtime. To me, it's a very safe route, but you still have to go over that 3/10 of a mile area. And again, referencing Andrew Cybor and the city's response to my request about doing work on that 3/10 of a mile section of road, and I did reach out to the District 2 rep as well. I don't recall what her name is, but Andrew's quote from the email was, given the city's transportation plan priorities, the noted limited crash history on this corridor, and lack of anticipated significant changes in the area, I don't expect the project would prioritize favorably. That kind of leads me into this information, which, you know, as soon as I get back from that last meeting, I thought, okay, what's the crash data in Monroe County? And so I pulled up these 3 crash reports that ran, and they overlap a little bit. January 2016 through 2018, January 2017 through 19, and then the 3 years, 2019 through 2021. Not one of those accident reports that's produced by the Monroe County Highway Department mentions Kinzer Pike once, which kind of reinforces what Andrew Cybor said, is that such a low incident rate on that road does not make it a priority. It just appears as though it's not quite as dangerous as some people fear it might be. I understand people can have fears, but my opinion is you have to back that up with the data, and the data shows it's not the issue that it's expected to be. So as far as traffic patterns are concerned and what we're going to bring to the increased load on the roads, so in the 24 months after opening, we anticipate experience the highest traffic in the 3 months of July, August, and September. And during those 3 months, we forecast most traffic on Saturday and Sunday, with the total visitors approaching 100 a day. At an average of 2 persons per vehicle, that would mean winery-related traffic would increase by 50 cars over a 7-hour period, which is approximately 7 cars per hour, which is 1 car every 8 minutes. And I know this seems like a long, boring presentation I'm making, but in the amount of time I'm going to be up here in 15 minutes, 2 cars will have gone by. And that information is based on averages that we received from the Indiana Winery Association as far as what the typical traffic is. And that was, I think, in the very first piece that Drew put up there as far as notes were concerned early on in this process. Kind of getting back to traffic and possibilities, the way the property is zoned right now, these are all the potential uses. Oops.
Pardon
Lose
me,
me?
Madam President. Sorry to jump in there, but I
That's
think
okay.
we lost Zoom for a
Yes, we
moment.
did.
I was going to just ask if it would be appropriate if we paused for a moment until we get everything back up.
Well, the
because-
staff is working on it. The staff is working
Yeah,
on it,
we,
so.
for some reason, our.
Okay, I was just asking if that was something you would want to entertain, but
So I think tech services is working on it, but the whole Zoom hybrid meeting has paused for a
Yes.
second, so.
Okay, well, we can take a minute and.
However you prefer.
Yeah, well, the people who are signed in online and members of the Plan Commission who are attending via Zoom wouldn't be privy to what you might say.
I
so-
understand, sure.
Yes, so thank you. It's just a technical glitch. While we're doing that, I noticed that in your photos, in your presentation, that the dome of the courthouse went from the kind of oxidized copper to,
Recording in
Copper.
progress.
did we clean that or do something? Yeah, so anyway, we're back online.
Okay.
So thank you.
Sure.
Yes, exactly. Okay, Mr. Rolfson, I think you might have about a minute or a minute and a half to finish up, if that's okay, given some of the difficulties
sure.
we experienced.
Yeah, well, let's do this real quick. So a couple of the permitted uses right now, and I'm assuming this is what C and P mean, permitted and conditional in the list. Of what's permitted right now is, under conditional, is bed and breakfast, church, daycare center, golf course, swim clubs, public libraries, museums, schools. These are all things I could do with it right now accordingly on a conditional basis, and police stations. So the whole idea of pointing this out is because if part of the concern is the increased traffic on Kinzer Pike, the potential already exists for that, and possibly in a way that would far exceed anything that we would be generating. What is permitted is cemeteries, parks and playgrounds, residential care homes, single-family detached dwellings, and what would probably be a really beautiful utility substation and transmission facility. So there are a lot of things I think that can take away from the rural feeling of that area and add a lot of traffic to what's going on without ever putting this through a rezoning process. What we're trying to do is keep things as agricultural feeling as we can. We'll be growing grapes. I'll be a farmer. Big difference from my former career. So let's go on to this one, potential impact. According to Bob Brick, a partner at Brick and Corbett Real Estate in Travis City, wineries and local wine culture play a big role in benefiting homeowners from increasing the tax base, raising property values, supporting the local economy, and so on. Brick goes on to say, for the same reason that views of water, views of golf courses, and views of city skylines will raise the property value, views of rolling fields of grapes and beautiful winery will too. This is what he specializes in real estate. I threw this up there simply because agritourism, on the next slide, is a big part. And I'll conclude. Denying the zoning approval process, and I came up with this, not to offend anybody, but it was my discussion with a land use attorney that led to this. Denying the approval process based primarily on the condition of Kinzer Pike may not be the most effective solution to addressing the road issue. The county and city governments may need to address the road issue regardless of what the zoning decision is. And denying zoning approval on that basis may not necessarily solve the problem or address the underlying concern of road condition and safety. I've got more, but I'll save it for my 5-minute rebuttal. How's that?
Thank you, Mr. Rolfson. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to members of the public who are both online and in person who are in favor of this petition. If you are here in the room, would you please come to the podium and sign in? If you are online on Zoom, please raise your virtual hand. And if you are calling in by telephone, please press *9 in order to be recognized if you're in favor of this petition. Okay, we don't see that. So if there are members of the public who are in this room or online, please make yourself known or on the telephone. And if you are here to speak against this petition, please begin by coming up to the podium, signing in, stating what county you live in, and you'll each have 3 minutes.
I'm Jana Hasty, and I live in Monroe County, a resident of Bell Road for 40 years. My question is, will you be able to buy wine to consume on the property? That's
Okay, well, when
while
he,
you're there.
yes, when he
Yep.
has his rebuttal, he can.
That's fine.
Yes, and we saw your letter
Yep.
in the packet. If there's anything else you'd like to add, or no?
Nope,
Okay.
that was it.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Hasty. Hello, sir. It's good to see you back.
Hello. Yes, my name is Paul Green. I'm not a good public speaker, so bear with me. I was here last time. I gave a presentation on the roadway, showing how narrow it is, how many times people have had to get off the road just for normal traffic reasons, let alone large trucks coming in and out. What I've got right now is a list of different things that I know is concerns of not only myself but other people. And start with, there is sinkholes on that property. I've lived out there for over 40 years. I know there's sinkholes. Also know there's karst. The roads are bad, which I explained last time. There will be excess traffic, which we don't need, including drunks, whether they get drunk at the winery or got drunk before and going to the winery to try and get some more alcohol. Sewers, don't know what they're going to do about that, because previous people who wanted to develop that property was told they'd have to put a line in all the way down to the bottom by Old 37 to connect with the line going to the bleacher pool. Worried about the smell from, the grapes or the storage and any rotting that goes on. It's been known fact that they've not allowed any businesses out there in the past, including Gray Brothers, which wanted to build out there, was not allowed to. Noise from the bands or whatever that kind of entertainment they have up there, especially if they're on the outside of the building, whether it be daytime, nighttime, or whatever. Annexation by the city, that's another big problem, because once you get something like that out there, then the city's gonna say, hey, that's business, we want that in our territory. So they start trying to annex again. And me and 6 others fought really hard to keep that area out of the city. The area is rural, it's not urban, and it's not in the city. We want to keep it that way. We have cross-country runners from BHS North through Train, all along that road. And with the excess traffic, I'm afraid we're going to have more problems with young students getting hit. We also have a lot of bicyclists that run out there, especially the ones training for the little 500. And I'm worried about the environmental impact of any chemicals they use on the grapes and so forth. That's just a few of the concerns for the area. And like I said, we like to keep it rural. It has been rural for years, ever since I've been out there for 40-some years. We want to keep it that way. And another problem we have is if it's rezoned, there's so many other businesses that once it's been rezoned, either this gentleman or somebody else can bring in there other than a winery, including car repairs, shops, and all kinds of stuff. And like I said, we want to keep it rural, and safe for our kids and so forth in the area.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for coming back today. Are there other members of the public who would like to speak in opposition to this petition who are here in this room? Please come to the podium. If there are members of the public who are online attending by Zoom who would like to speak in opposition to this petition, please raise your virtual hand, or if you're dialing in by phone, press *9 in order to be recognized. And if there's no one, Mr. Rolfson, you have a 5-minute opportunity to make a rebuttal.
This won't take 5 minutes, so if you got any questions, please feel free to dive in there. And to answer the lady's question regarding can people just buy wine, I've been to Oliver and Huber and all over California. I've never been someplace where you go in for a wine tasting, but you just buy a single glass of wine. It's not to say it's not permitted. I don't quite know what the rules are. That's not our intent. But maybe it's allowed. I'll have to check with the TTB and the ABC on that one and find out if it's even allowed. So again, while change is not always welcomed by all, decisions on whether to grant a change in zoning should be based on the impact of the neighborhood and the safety and the welfare of its citizens. The data simply does not support the fear the neighbors express regarding increased traffic and drunken driving leading to accidents. Kinser Pike has had so few accidents, it's not even mentioned in the Monroe County Highway Department's traffic accident data one time over a 5-year period. To further minimize accident risk, though, driveways will be located on Kinser Pike so that guests exiting the facility can get a full view in either direction of oncoming traffic. And we're also going to do it to minimize the inconvenience to neighbors because it was originally suggested we put the driveway to the winery on Bell Road. The fear of drunk driving is also not supported by any evidence-based findings from the concerned parties. There are no reports, either anecdotal or factual, that either of Bloomington's other wineries have had issues with incidents of drunken driving. Further, neither Lime Rock nor any other winery can accurately be compared to a bar or restaurant where patrons can spend hours consuming alcoholic beverages. Tasting at Lime Rock, as I've said before, will follow a standard protocol of 5 1-ounce samples, or approximately 1 full glass, which is the equivalent of 1 beer. For those with concerns over that volume, the National Institutes of Health states that the liver can metabolize alcohol at a very constant rate of approximately 1 standard drink per hour. And I've put a chart down there to indicate what they're calling as a standard drink. A 12-ounce beer, an 8-ounce malt liquor, a 5-ounce glass of wine, or 1.5-ounce shot of 80-proof distilled spirits. Denying a zoning approval based primarily on the condition of Kinzer Pike may not be the most effective solution to addressing the road issue. County and city governments may need to address the road issue regardless of the zoning decision, and denying zoning approval on that basis isn't going to solve the problem with the condition of the road. Based on the facts and the information presented, the lack of concrete evidence that Lime Rock Ridge would present a clear and present danger to the population, degrade home values, or otherwise create a nuisance, we respectfully request the board approve our zoning petition consistent with the recommendation of the Monroe County Planning Department. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rolfson. And I turn now to members of the Plan Commission. Do you have questions for Mr. Rolfson or for staff? Mr. Enright Randolph?
I have a question, and a lot of it is kind of focused on the uses. And I guess, Drew, this is just kind of, since we have a lot of members here with the public, if you could actually go to the request to rezone to ag, RR, would you speak about the intensity and then how those relate to permitted use, and then the intensity, and then how those relate to conditional uses? Because everything you see here still kind of has some limitations where you have to come into compliance before they're necessarily granted. So if you could speak to that, and then I have one additional maybe comment. If it's permitted, it could turn into a question after you expand.
Okay. Yeah, so on the screen, I have the permitted use table for the Ag RR district, as well as the permitted use table for the State Residential 1 district. In the left table with the yellow titles, there's two columns. There's intensity and then there's zones. So in the intensity column, an H stands for high intensity, an M stands for medium intensity, and an L stands for low intensity. The column that is titled zones, anywhere you see a P, that particular use in that row is permitted. There isn't a, some of those uses may have standards attached to them, and those aren't depicted in this table, so I will note that. Anywhere you see a C is conditional, meaning that that particular use must go to the Board of Zoning Appeals through a conditional use variance, which is a public hearing, and there may be additional standards that have to be met, as well as the conditions of the conditional use for that particular use. Anywhere, I don't think that there's any blank ones. This is just all of the permitted ones. But if you were to see a blank space, that particular use would not be permitted there. You know, you'll note that a lot of the uses in the Ag RR district are of agricultural nature. And then there are a few others that are listed here in the table. The same goes for the state residential zoning districts table. The C stands for conditional. That still has to follow that same process of a conditional use variance. And a P stands for permitted. And again, some of those Ps for permitted may have additional standards attached to them that aren't depicted in the table at this moment.
Right, and some of those could be hooking up to sewer or other conditions, depending on what use. So I guess my question to the petitioner is, how amenable are you to kind of truncating that use list? There are several things on here that I don't necessarily think would be ideal for that location, and right now you're just asking for a blanketed rezone. So I'll just highlight a few, like a automotive repair service. Now maybe you can't meet all of the conditions at the time, but to the gentleman's point, if we just rezone it, eventually maybe all those conditions can be met and it's treated more like a by right. Also, I think the private recreational vehicle RV park, again, that's kind of considered a high intense use and conditional, so there are some parameters you would have to, comply with before you could build that. But that's really kind of where a lot of my focus is on this petition, because I do think what is already allowed could kind of increase the traffic. Yeah, there is some truth. If we're creating a winery, there is access to wine and alcohol, but at the same time, I think even just a private residence, you can go to the liquor store and come home and have a case of beer. And, you know, I don't really want to question people's morals or ethics here, but I do think it's a relevant and needed point to bring up, but I'm not going to factor that one into my decision making. So again, the question is, how amenable are you to kind of removing some of the conditional and permitted uses that are listed currently?
To removing them? Well, I think the whole intent is to retain, and this is what we're trying to keep the spirit of, is to retain the rural agricultural feeling. And what we're proposing to put there is not, you know, a body shop or an automotive repair facility or a Gray Brothers cafeteria. We're proposing putting a farm there that in the middle of 20 acres will have about a 3-acre footprint where we're going to take our own fruit, process it into wine, and sell it. So I'm with the neighbors. I wouldn't, you know, as the owner of that property, I would not want those other things going up around there.
So you would work with planning and maybe strike some of those uses that we're looking at currently?
If I had that kind of input, I would sure.
Okay.
Be happy to do that.
Thank you.
So for what it's worth, when we moved in the house in Fishers, Indiana, there was a guy that owned the land, and they ran really loud motorcycles directly in back of our house all the time. Drove me nuts, which is why I was looking for a large piece of land so we could have some peace and quiet.
Right. And currently, I think this is our second hearing, so if we are thinking of entertaining this, we would have to move it to one more meeting to kind of have a clear list. But again, that's kind of where my thought process is, and that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Enright Randall. County Council Member, Ms. Munson?
Hi.
I have two questions that come from opponents of the project and neighbors of the proposed zoning change area, I believe. One had to do with smells emanating from the processing of wine, and the second had to do with sewage and septic. And if you could talk more about this, I would appreciate it. And if staff wishes to make comments, I would be very happy to hear from them as well.
Sure. I mean, regarding smells, I suppose in any process, if you're releasing some carbon dioxide during that particular process for a brief period of time, there's probably going to be some odor, but they're not going to be living next door to the winery. So how far those odors go into the air before they connect with other molecules and become something else, it's kind of like ozone starts out as O3, gets into the air and it splits into O2 and, you know, a free radical. So I don't know how that process works and being that far away. So first of all, they're downwind or they're downwind.
Okay.
So the wind's, and this is one of the big reasons I picked this property, the wind is moving from the south-southeast or south-southwest across the property. And that's one of the reasons I picked it, was because if there was any agriculture around there, farmers use 2,4-D. That's deadly to a vineyard, you know, when you're growing corn and things like that. So I wanted to make sure we were far enough away that that wouldn't have an impact, and the air blows south to north. So I don't know how they would ever pick that up unless they moved to the north side of the property. I'm sorry, what was the second question?
The second had to do with sewage or septic.
Well, septic is where we'd have to go because I don't quite have deep enough pockets to connect with the water treatment facility a mile away. We're not there yet. But I did talk to the engineers, and there's no reason we can't put a commercial septic system in. And for all the commercial septic systems I've heard about, I've not heard that one of them really emanates nasty odors. I don't have one, but I've got several friends that live on large parcels of land. Does anyone have a septic? Do they I don't have firsthand knowledge of that, but I can't imagine that would be allowed to go that way. Seems to me it would be defective if it wasn't keeping control of the odors.
So thank you for that information.
And Mr. Morris, do you have any questions? Okay, and to my left, are there questions from any other members of the Plan Commission for Mr. Rolfson or for staff? Mr. Garitas?
One of the neighbors discussed a little bit about alcohol sold inside. You don't allow alcohol to be brought in?
No.
Right, that's what I just wanted to make sure that I understood that. And then I just wanted to appreciate the traffic discussion,
Yes, sir.
because I think that was helpful. That's really all I have right now.
Okay, thank you. Do
So
have any-
you feel this meeting will go to a third?
It normally would go to the commissioners after this for a
Okay.
decision. And,
You're basing your question on Tron's comments, I think.
Yes, sir.
yes, but, well, someone could make a motion, for example, that would recommend discussion with the Plan Commission to limit uses, and then it could still go to the commissioners in a timely manner, so to speak. But that being said, do you have any questions, sir? And then we'll go to Julie Thomas and to Dee Owens online.
I don't really have a question, more so of a comment. And my comment is coming from the experience of agriculture and the diverse agriculture that Indiana has throughout, even in just Monroe County in particular. And there's a lot of the agriculture aspects that are noted in that Ag-RR that if smell or noise is a grave concern, wineries are a lot lesser than, say, a stockyard or a drying facility for grain. And even under its current zoning, crops and pasture are there, and you can see from ortho imagery that it's already used as what I assume to be hay production.
Yes.
And the amount of equipment, noise, and use on the land as is currently is probably higher than that of what a vineyard would have from my experience throughout agriculture. So just kind of a comment to that regard.
And if I can just reply to that, part of the goal of this is to produce as close as we can a LEED-friendly facility that generates as little waste as possible, and to use systems and farming practices that minimize the impact, both noise, sound pollution, and otherwise. So.
Thank you. And Commissioner Thomas has her hand raised, and so please proceed.
Yeah, so I have concerns similar to what Mr. Enright Randolph talked about, but mine are even broader than that, because we have petitioners that appear before us and will say things like, oh, we're going to close at 6 and we won't have music, or we're not going to host events, or we'll only host small events, whatever it may be that we hear. And the intentions may be there right now, but then something changes, profit margins look different, whatever changes, or a new owner, and we have a sudden ramping up of intensity in use. And so what I would like to see would be a full commitment to all the things that were outlined today by the petitioner as part of a recorded commitment. And then the public can come back and say, yeah, that's sufficient. That's exactly what we want to make sure happens. Like, I don't think anybody is opposed to having a winery or a grape growing venture on this property. I don't think anyone's opposed to that. I think it's the event center side of it, because it is so unpredictable in terms of noise and traffic and things. So I would like to see all of this put down as a recorded commitment, then to have those neighbors come back and say, yeah, that works, we agree to that, fine. But I just feel like it's a lot of conversation, and I don't think that's enough for anybody to hang their hat on. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. And I can't see if Dee Owens has her hand raised, or,
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
thank you. So I bring it back to members of the Plan Commission. Mr. Enright Randolph?
Barring any other comments or questions, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
If it needs to be more elegantly said, I'll defer to my colleagues, but would you help me with the pronounce the first name?
Rolfson? Rolfson?
Rolfson? Sorry.
That's why I didn't name it the Rolfson Winery.
So in case number REZ-22-12, Rawlson rezone from RE1 to AG/RR. I'd like to continue this to our next administrative meeting to discuss the uses, and then ultimately continue it to our next regular meeting.
Okay, is there a second for Mr. Enright Randolph's motion? His motion is to give Mr. Rolfson an opportunity to work with planning staff to limit the uses. And for the public, that means that they would try to limit some of your worst fears, that they would receive a commitment from on the property in perpetuity that would not allow certain activities on that property. So that's what the motion is to continue it, which means it will come to an administrative meeting the first Tuesday of the month. If the members of the Plan Commission second and approve Mr. Enright Randolph's motion. Yes, Councilmember Munson?
I would like to second the motion.
Okay, so,
Okay, it's
Okay.
been moved and seconded to continue this to the March Plan Commission meeting. The dates would be,
Can I offer a friendly amendment?
yes, Mr.
The only
Garrett.
question I would have is, as it relates to what Julie had mentioned with discussing any commitments that they want to put on paper in addition to the uses.
So, could you repeat
Yeah,
that?
the hours of operation, the
Uh-huh.
things that Julie had talked about, I think that if we're gonna do this and we're gonna come back here and see the petition, we should look at the conditions that the petitioner has thought through with what we've discussed, with what the neighbors have discussed, and understand exactly what the site will look like then.
Just to clarify.
Is that clear enough?
I have a written commitment of kind of what we're going to look at by the regular meeting.
No, by the administrative meeting.
By the administrative meeting?
Which is the first Tuesday of the month of
Okay.
March. Okay.
Does that
Okay.
Does that give
seem
staff
like?
enough time?
Yeah, that was my question.
So you want to see an outline of what our standard operating, not operating procedures for production, but what our hours of operation are going to be, and what in addition to that are you going to be looking at?
Well, what I'm doing is I'm trying to look at this comprehensively based on what Julie brought up, what Tron had brought up, that Julie's point, I think, was that neighbors are concerned sometimes with hours of operation. That's usually the big thing. So if you would look at
Sure.
what you intend on the hours, it'll be open 7 days a week, just things like that might curb some of those concerns, and we don't have to discuss these again. We'll
Sure.
just kind of
Yeah,
know
we could do
upfront.
that. Sure.
Can I add something? at
Yes,
this
Commissioner.
juncture, if I might? Okay, I'm sorry to jump in, and thank you, Mr. Garitas. I would say, if you're saying you're never going to have more than, X number of people visiting the property at any time, I mean, anything about your operation that you are willing to commit to in perpetuity, I think should be thought about. Things that will make your potential future neighbors happy.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say in response to that is that if I'm going to say over the period of a day, we're anticipating, 100 people, 10 years from now, it could be more than that. And I can't anticipate that because you don't want to throttle your success. It's a free enterprise is what it is. And so the whole idea is we want to do this. So I think to put this on paper would be legally challenging because it would require us to keep records of exactly how many people came in over the course of a day. And when we hit that mark that we said we would do in 2023, then we had to shut everybody else down. You follow what I'm saying on that?
If I might, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm talking about that you're not going to host a wedding with 200 guests.
Oh, no.
Right? If that's your intention, right? If you think it might grow into that, then don't put it on there.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the visitors coming day to day. I'm talking about the size of any one event,
Yeah.
right? Which
Of
is a
course.
very big difference for people who live in that neighborhood.
Of course, yes. No, I
Yeah,
understand.
so
Yep.
that's the only thing I'm talking about.
Okay,
And so Councilmember Munson has an additional question.
okay.
Yes.
This question is for staff, really. I'm concerned about by right permitted uses that would be available with the rezone to AG/RR. And which of those by right permitted uses the applicant would be willing to give up so that the neighbors would not be concerned about those future uses that you do not intend at all to pursue.
Like the body shop?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Madam President,
point
we have
of
a motion
clarity.
and a second on the
Right,
floor.
point
Did
of
I miss
clarity.
something?
I'm sorry, just
that-
one moment.
Is this
That
a point
is
of
part
order? It's a point of order.
Order or
Did we have
clarity?
a point?
I'm sorry, just one moment. I'm going to continue. I allowed Councilmember Munson's question.
We're losing all focus. We had a motion and a second
I
on the
understand.
floor, and we've diverted into a conversation that has little to do with that, and it's a point of order. You don't take a motion and a second and then go off on some other category.
Well, we're on an amendment, and I will just point of order or clarity. That was part of my motion, was to discuss the uses. Now, the amendment that Bernie was offering is to kind of have a statement prepared by the petitioner of kind of how you want to outline this. And then I'm just going to echo Commissioner Thomas's comment. If it's not something that you're intending or thinking that is feasible, don't include it. I'm personally focused on the uses. And yes, to Mr. Garrett Taw's friendly amendment, I would accept the amendment that you would like to see some of these in writing from the petitioner if he has any to present at the next admin meeting. And then I guess the question is your second still stand?
My second stands, and I did want the petitioner and staff to review the permitted uses in AG/RR.
Okay, so that being said, there's a motion and a second with an amendment. We don't follow Robert's rules strictly in this county plan
I don't
commission
even remember
meeting.
what the motion was.
Well, it was to continue it to the admin meeting with a recommendation that Mr. Rolfson work with planning staff to limit the uses. So that's the continuation. The motion is to continue this petition. So that being said, Ms. Nestor Jelen, will you please call the vote?
Sure, and I'll just want to clarify one thing. Do you want this to be decided at the next administrative meeting so that this, or do you just want it to go to the
Just move there
regulars?
for discussion, and then we'll make it to the regular
Okay,
meeting in
so-
March. That's kind of how my motion
Okay.
originally was.
So it's been moved and seconded to continue this to the March 21st regular Plan Commission meeting with request for 2 items from the petitioner. One is a draft commitment, which could include information such as hours of operation, event sizes, event types, frequency of events, limitation to any outdoor events such as number of people in attendance. And also, number 2 is to go through the list of Ag RR permitted uses and have a conversation with the petitioner about which uses they would feel comfortable striking from the rezone and therefore would not be permitted. A motion in favor is a motion to continue this to the March 21st regular meeting of the Plan Commission. Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Edward Olman,
No.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
No.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens,
Yes?
Tron Enright Randolph,
It's your motion.
Yeah, the amendment's the one that's tricking me. I'll just preference, only add what you really think that is reasonable to your commitment. I'll vote yes.
Bertie Garitas,
Yes.
Jeffrey Morris.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 7-2 to continue this to the March 21st regular meeting of the Plan Commission.
Okay, and to the members of the public who are here, that means that you will have a chance yet again to come to our county plan commission meeting on March 21st to speak in favor or in opposition to the proposed project with the new restrictions on future uses on the property. You know, so that he intends to make some commitments about what, if he is allowed to build a winery there, that will never happen on the property because he is agreeing to restrict those uses. So that's for the public. If you are wanting to come back, and please do. We'd like to have your input. And Mr. Rolfson, we know you'll be working with staff. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Can I say something? Okay. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is,
Madam President, before we continue, I'm going to excuse myself so you all may continue, and I will see you at the next meeting.
oh, I
Thank you.
look forward to it, Mr. Pittsford. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming and for your good thoughts tonight. The next item on the agenda is SSS-22-13, Sites Gaither Sliding Scale Subdivision. This is the preliminary hearing with a road width waiver requested, and they've also requested a waiver of the final hearing. And this concerns one parcel on 18.57 acres in Section 13 of Bean Blossom Township at 4305 West Prather Road. And it's currently zoned Ag RR. And Ms. Crecelius, if you would be so kind as to go over this with us.
Thank you, absolutely. Okay, so as you just stated, this is in Bean Blossom Township. It's 18.57 acres. So this is one single legal lot of record, and they're proposing to use the sliding scale subdivision process to create one new additional small lot. So the property consists of mainly buildable area, which are slopes that are 15% or under. There are a few drainage areas which have been identified on the preliminary plat by the MS4 coordinator to be protected into 100-foot drainage easements. So here's a pictometry view from 2022 of the property. There is an existing single-family residence on that property along with a couple of residential accessory structures. The existing single-family residence is in a dilapidated state, so the petitioners do intend to build a new home of which we'll plan in the future. So just a slightly different angle. So this is a preliminary plat. Now the sliding scale subdivision, which I have here on the screen, one of the requirements under Chapter 862 for the sliding scale is that the road is required to be 18 feet in width. Currently, Prather Road, I believe, is identified as approximately 14 feet wide. The Highway Department is in support of this request, and I'll get there just in a moment. So currently, we are looking at the two proposed parcels. The Lot 1 would be considered the parent parcel, and under the sliding scale subdivision, it would be required to be have a recorded note on the plat that limits future subdivision for 25 years. So Lot 1, the parent parcel, would have, be 10 acres with approximately 5 acres buildable. It has a approved installation permit for a septic. It would have the main frontage along Prather Road. It has an approved driveway entrance. This would be shared with Lot 2. The proposed entrance is slightly relocated per the driveway permit project manager Ben Ayers. The entrance shown on the plat is the proposed safer entrance. So here's just a slightly zoomed in photo that might be easier to view. So access to the area towards the south on Lot 1 would cross a drainage easement. The MS4 coordinator has provided comments on what that driveway would look like, and they've already given that feedback for the culvert and the proper safe driveway entrance. So Lot 2 would be 7.9 acres and consist of 3.47 buildable acres. There is an approved installation permit for a septic system. It would have no direct frontage, and it would have that shared platted easement for the driveway. There would be 30 feet of right-of-way dedicated along West Prather Road. And currently, the area that would be Lot 2 has no structures on it. So I'm just going to run through kind of quickly a few site photos of the area. It was kind of a dark and gloomy day, so some of the photos are a little hard to see. So here are some of the existing residential structures. This is the existing single-family residential home on the property. This is the area that would be going through a drainage easement and would be the access to the southern portion of Lot 1. This would be an area that the MS4 coordinator would, has already identified would require a culvert. Okay. So the petitioner has provided findings for the road width waiver. The highway engineer, Paul Satterley, has commented that they would support the road width waiver since the traffic volumes on Prather Road are low, approximately 80 vehicles per day, and the subdivision is estimated to add approximately 10 vehicles per day to the roadway. So overall, staff does recommend approval of the sliding scale subdivision preliminary plat and the road width waiver based on the findings of fact and subject to the Monroe County Highway Department reports. I believe we have no new reports, and this does have a waiver of final hearing requested.
Do members of the Plan Commission have questions for Ms. Crecelius? Mr. Enright Randall.
Just one. Did you state the plat committee's vote on this when we reviewed it?
It was affirmative. I was there.
Yes, it was a positive recommendation from the plat committee.
Yeah. So that being said, if Mr. Seitz or Mr. Gaither or their wives would like to come to the podium and make your case to the Plan Commission, you have 15 minutes in total. And if you would, after you sign in, if you would state your name and what county you live in.
My name is Jordan Seitz. I live in Monroe County, and I promise I won't take the whole 15 minutes, but my family can attest if given the chance to speak, I tend to take it. So thank you all for the opportunity to speak. As I said, I'm Jordan Seitz. I am the petitioner. I live in Monroe County, and my wife and I are the current owners of 4305 West Prather. My wife, Katie, and I have long had a dream of purchasing land near Bloomington with her sister's family. We all like each other a lot, with the hopes of raising our kids together, creating a memorable childhood for the 5 cousins, and together we collectively have 5 kids under the age of 7, and we have a dream of giving them a childhood that consists of exploring woods, building forts, searching for geodes, and making memories with the family, which we have already started. This has been our dream for years, and as you might imagine with all of the things that you hear here, it is very difficult to find adjoining parcels or parcels that would work toward being split. After quite a few failed attempts, we have finally succeeded in finding a property that would help us make our version of the American dream a reality. We've been working with Todd Borgman and the Smith Design Group to map out a design that achieves our high-level goals of number one, a split of the parcels that follows the layout of the land, abiding by Monroe County regulations and ordinances, and number two, a design that wouldn't hinder our real estate value should something unexpected happen down the road and would not cause a disturbance to any of our neighbors. Over the past 9 months, we've fallen in love with the property, the neighborhood, and we are very hopeful that we can make this work. We've had the chance to meet quite a few of the neighbors, and we are honestly looking forward to becoming a part of their community. So thank you for your time, thank you for your thoughtful consideration, and we also want to express sincere thanks to Anne for her guidance, answering numerous questions in email along every step of the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seitz. And I'll turn now to the members of the public who are either in favor or opposed to this petition. If you're here in the room, please come to the podium. If you are online on Zoom, please raise your hand. If you are calling in by telephone, please press *9 in order to be recognized, and you would have then 3 minutes to speak. So either in favor or opposed. If none, I come back to members of the Plan Commission for further discussion and/or a motion.
I can make a motion.
Wonderful, Mr. Garitas.
Matter of case number SSS-22-13. This is a Sites Gaither Sliding Scale Subdivision Preliminary Plat. I move that we approve the preliminary plat along with a request for road width waiver of final hearing based on the findings of fact in the staff report and subject to the Monroe County Highway Department, the MS4 operator, and planning staff.
Second.
Wonderful.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve SSS-22-13, which is a 2-lot sliding scale subdivision, a road width waiver request, as well as a waiver of the final hearing. A motion in favor is to approve the sliding scale road width waiver and waiver of final hearing. Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens,
Yes?
Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
Bernie Garitas,
Yes.
Jeffrey Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson.
Yes.
Okay, petition is approved, 8-0.
Congratulations and have a wonderful time together. It sounds like you are building an ideal Monroe County living arrangement in life. So have fun. Yes. Okay. Okay. Are there reports from staff?
I do not have anything.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Any objections? Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, for your good work tonight. Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
bye.